Life at its best. Say with me, life at its best. I've heard people talk about the good old days. I've heard people talk about yesteryear. I've heard people talk about oldies but goldies. As a matter of fact, all of us don't listen to 1600. Can I just preach today? Everybody doesn't listen to 1600 or 690. Some of us listen to 104.9. And the other day, my wife dropped me off at the airport, and when I came back, my radio was on 104.9. And man, from the airport home, now come on, go with me now. I'm like the pastor now. From the airport home, I heard some of the songs that I hadn't heard before in 15, 20 years. Because, you know, preachers, we have to act like we listen to 1600 all the time. And they were jamming. And in the car, I started moving, and I said, man, I didn't know I still had that move. But I've heard about oldie but goldies, and so this past week, that's all I've really had it on 1600, a mixture. 1600, I listen to a little gospel over here, and I listen to a little old school. And I said that to say to you because in my mind, I remember what those days used to be. And oftentimes, because we are not in that era, in that day, or in that particular time frame, sometimes we forget that we had something then that motivated us to move on. Can I just preach it to you? And so what I did was I began to reflect and to review my life. I began to rewind in my mind the DVD of my life, and I started to relive some things that I used to do and used to say. I remember my first song that I sang to a young lady on the phone, you know that I'm swept for you, baby. But I found out it was just my imagination. Running away with me. What I began to see is that I did an internal inventory of my past. And you know what? If you can't remember your past, you're not going to be very productive in your present. And you're not going to really have what it takes to make it on your pilgrimage. So I remembered my past, and I did an inventory, and I recognized some things that I had not realized or recognized in a long time. Well, that's what I found out that this text actually deals with. To be perfectly honest, this text is really not about Joshua. This text, to start with, startled me because I read in this text where it says, now Joshua was old and stricken. And then it come back to say, and the Lord reminded him that you are old and stricken. So I knew it had to be something in this text that was pointing to me, old and stricken. Joshua, the record is that this text, this book is written by the bearer of the name Joshua. But in the text, not only does Joshua say I'm old and stricken, he says, but the Lord said to me, I'm old and stricken. Now, if you don't know it, the Lord will remind you. I want to be practical. Can I be practical? If you don't know it, aches and pains will remind you that there's some stuff that you can't do. Do I have any witnesses? There's some things that you can't do like you used to do them. I've heard people when they get a little older, Pastor Jackson, say things I used to do, I don't do no more. And places I used to go, I don't go no more. It ain't because you don't want to. Sometimes it's because you can't. Yeah, can I get away? Let me get this practical stuff out the way. There's some stuff that we used to do we can't do anymore. I used to could see without these glasses, and now I can't see too well without it. I can make out just a little bit, but I'm not, I mean, you know. Look, when I looked at this this text and I looked at the thing that was given to me, life at its best, and I said, how does that fit? Because the first part of this sounds pessimistic. It says that this man is old and stricken in age. And many times when a person feels that they are old and stricken in age, they feel like that's it. Joshua was not like that. And so what I did was I recalled and rewind and went back and reviewed Joshua's life. And I came to understand that from an early age, Joshua had a different perspective than his peers. From an early age, what Joshua did was have a relationship with God. Joshua was called of God, and Joshua never wavered in his level of faithfulness to God. Joshua had never relied on his strength nor his ability. Just because you're old or getting old doesn't mean that you are not useful. I've heard people say, I ain't got it no more, I ain't doing no more. And some people retire before they should retire. But this text helps us to understand that there's still more to do. Turn to somebody and say, there's more to do. As a matter of fact, my sisters and brothers, we ought not get in the habit of rusting out. We need to get in the habit of wearing out. There's something left for you to do. Well, I recognize in this text, and if you don't mind me sharing it, I recognize a divine punctuation. Because the record says, now Joshua was old and stricken in years. The translation says, you're getting old, you're an old man now. And the Lord said unto him, thou art old and stricken in years. If you really look at your translation, whatever it is, it should be a comma after years. And there remained yet very much land to be possessed. And so I wondered what that comma really meant. Because many times we have periods in our life. And when you get to the period, that's the end of the sentence. And some folk have periods, y'all gonna catch this after a while. Some folk, when it comes to their life and their work in the kingdom, have periods. I'm finished. Period. I can't do it. Period. It ain't going to work. Period. Not me. Period. But listen, whenever you've been called of God into this ministry that he's called us unto and into, you understand that you've got to erase the period. And God will put a comma there. There is divine punctuation. He says that just because somebody says you're finished doesn't mean you're finished. Just because somebody gives you a definition of who you are does not mean that you're who they say that you are. Because just as soon as you're born, when you decide that's it, when he puts a comma there, that's a pause. Because a continuation, there's something else that's left to do.